Hi there, my name is John and I'm 25 years old and I'm a music critic and music influencer on YouTube. At the time of recording this video, I've been on this planet for over 25 years, and this video is a song for every single year that I've been alive, for every part of my life, whether it be a song that I feel influenced me and kind of represented that year, or a song that just really fit the mood and the vibe of that time and the year that I'm going through. Now, this video was inspired by a video that my girlfriend did. Cool idea that she had. She challenged me to do it. I decided I wanted to take a look into and really just see exactly what I could come up with. If you want to see her video, it'll be linked in the description down below. I definitely recommend watching that. So for me today, I'm going to be going through, giving you a little bit more of me, I suppose, letting you in and showing you maybe why this song was a good representation. And I want to be clear that the songs did not have to come out in the year. Say like 1995, I've got a song that came out in 2002. It doesn't have to line up in that way. It just has to be a song that describes. Now, a lot of these songs do come out in or around the year that I am going to be talking about, so you'll see. I don't want to get it too confusing, so leave a like on the video. I hope that you enjoy it. Let's kick it all the way back to 1991, the year that I was born. I don't often get to talk about the king of pop on my channel, but whenever I do, rest assured I have good things to say about his music. Michael Jackson was ruling the airwaves whenever I was born, and for the week of December 17th, 1991, this was the #1 song in America. And of course, that's one of the reasons that I picked this one, but also because Black or White is still a great message to this day. It promotes diversity, and it says, it doesn't matter. I don't care if you're black or white or whatever your skin tone might be. It doesn't matter. It's about the heart, the soul, the music, the vibe, the people. It's about everything else that defines us. Our skin should not define who we are. And Black or White, while a very catchy and melodic pop song, is one that I can look back to and be proud that this was the #1 song whenever I was born. Since I was born so late into December 1991, of course 1992, Alive by Pearl Jam is a good representation. It just says it all. I'm still alive, Eddie Vedder sings on this one, and yes, I made it through. You know, obviously you never want to think about this, but some babies definitely have trouble early on, especially in older times. Obviously modern medicine has advanced, but I had like a few small problems, nothing major, but it's something where they wanted to keep an eye on a few things to make sure that I was going to be okay. And I think that's with most babies, honestly. But I made it through. I'm still alive, and it's a song that I look back to proudly because it came out right around that time as well. Obviously, 10 was a massive album for Pearl Jam, and I am proud that I came from that era. The grunge baby. There was a boy who had the faith to move a mountain, and like a child he would believe without a reason. I will preface this by saying that I am still religious myself and consider myself a Christian, but I grew up in a very, very conservative Christian household, and Michael W. Smith was a common name to us. It was something that my mom loved, my dad embraced as well, and Missing Person was one of the earliest songs that I have a memory of. Now, while this obviously didn't come out until years later, I wasn't really that aware, I don't think, at the time of music in 1993, other than like the soundtrack songs or maybe the Magic School Bus theme song or something like that. I was just 2 years old, so obviously this is something that I connected to early on. But I picked it because I feel like it's a good representation of the kind of values that my parents brought to me, and that's something that I'm never gonna knock because they raised me well and they raised me to be strong and independent, and I am proud of that. But they also raised me on religious roots, but also didn't speak of hatred and things like that, like we don't hate certain types of people, and I think that that's the wrong idea that some people get about conservative Christians. My parents are very anti-Trump and that sort of thing, still even being conservative, so I think that speaks volumes right there. And with this track that I selected by Michael W. Smith, Missing Person is actually something that I can still come back to and enjoy the song, because even if you're not religious, it's a track that's about a changing person, somebody that disappeared. Their colors have changed and now they've faded into oblivion, into someone else. It's like, where's that person that I used to know? And I think that everybody in a friendship, relationship, or any kind of religious scenario can relate to that. Bum, 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 bum. It's the Inspector Gadget theme song for 1994. I grew up loving this show. No, I am not talking about the abomination that is the Disney and Matthew Broderick interpretation and remake. Good God, was that thing unnecessary. No, I am talking about the animated show from the 80s that definitely made it and had longevity into the 90s. I love this. Penny, the dog, what was the dog's name? And of course, Inspector Gadget himself getting into all these wacky scenarios. It's one of those things where I just remember sitting there at the TV glued to it. I had like a limited amount of time of TV that I was allowed each day, but this was always one of the shows that I would record to VHS and just watch over and over and over again. It's The Claw and the Cat.
Ask the grinning bobcat why he grinned. Can you sing with all the voices of the mountain? Can you paint with all the colors of the wind?
Pocahontas came out during the Disney Renaissance of the 1990s and the late 80s, all the way up to really Tarzan, I think, in 1999. But Pocahontas came out in 1995, and that's the song that I've selected for this year, of course, Colors of the Wind. This is something that I see as being so beautiful, and I think that this movie was so well done. The music in it is just gorgeous, very cinematic, but also kind of tugs at the heartstrings. And I think Colors of the Wind is something that also kind of promotes diversity. It was something that ingrain that in kids early on. And I think that's important, especially kids that grow up maybe even with bigoted parents and that sort of thing, where they see color and they see things as being problematic. This raises kids to know that, you know, it's all about what you feel inside. You don't feel hatred. Why promote hatred? And Colors of the Wind, while maybe I'm picking it apart a bit too much, in and of itself, is just a nice song to listen to. I love the vocals on this. The female voice here is just beautiful. And it's something that I can look back to, watch the movie again, and it still holds up to this day. Many of you may have never heard this song, but around the time I was 5 years old, I remember loving this song. I had this little march that I would do to this song from the movie The Music Man. This track was called 76 Trombones, and my grandfather, who unfortunately passed away in 2001 whenever I was very young, he would always sing this song with me, and I remember breaking out the record player. My parents would put on this record, and my grandpa would come over, and I would march around the basement with him, holding a baton, just acting like I was leading the parade. It was something so special to me. I would call it, like, I think it was the bells and the horns is what I would refer to it as my mom always reminds me when I was a kid. It's one of her favorite memories of me as a child, and I know that it was something that was so special to the family just because I was really into this, and it was something that they all loved as well. And to see me so involved and kind of taking an interest in other styles of music was very, very cool.
It's been a hard day's night. I've been working like a dog. It's been a hard day's night. I could be sleeping like a log.
Crossing into 1997, I had really started to develop a passion for vinyl. It wasn't something where I was like, ooh, I want to go out and buy my own, but I would like to look through my parents' records to see what they had. And obviously, a band of my parents' time, more so than mine, of course, the Beatles. The Beatles were the biggest thing on the planet. Everybody still knows, and most of us love the Beatles and respect what they did for the community. And A Hard Day's Night was a record that I absolutely loved to play. I think they had the single, and of course they had an entire record, and so many of the Beatles' records as well. And it was something where I would sit there and just beg my dad to put it on the turntable. I want to listen to it again and again. And we would sit there and sing those lines. It's been a hard day's night, and I've been working like a dog. It was something where my dad and I would always like play off of each other and try to like stretch it out like dog and log and just see how crazy we could get. And he would do it in his like crazy Elvis voice and try to imitate Paul McCartney or John Lennon, everything like that. It's just fond memories all around. And then my dad would always make the joke that at the end of one of the Beatles' records, they would say, "Happy birthday, Paul." My dad would always say that, and we would always have so many laughs together over it.
Here in the night, I see the sun. Here in the dark are two hearts of one.
I always smile whenever I think back on my childhood because obviously the innocent times, and I feel like kids these days just have totally different experiences. They're forced into the real world so much earlier thanks to the internet and that sort of thing, and that's not something that I was affected by, and there's something special about childhood innocence. And this track just reminds me of that. It's very wholesome and it was done by LEANN. This is my 1998 pick and it's called Looking Through Your Eyes. And if that sounds familiar, you might know it because it was like one of the main songs from Quest for Camelot, a movie that kind of flew under the radar. It didn't get amazing reviews or anything like that. Some said it was kind of a ripoff of other things, but Quest for Camelot was one of my favorite films and something that I played over and over again after seeing it in theaters and then buying the VHS. I even remember going to Wendy's and getting the trading card set that came with the kids meal. It was something that I played until I was probably like 12 or 13 years old. That card set probably exists somewhere still to this day. And that song just reminds me of that big kind of open chorus that was, yes, kind of cheesy and cliche because a lot of music just in movies in general for child animation would do that, but at the same time this was a special movie for me.
I wanna be the very best, like no one ever was. To catch them is my real test, to train them is my cause.
Pokemon theme song, I choose you! There's videos of me dancing around my basement. I really hope I'm able to find some of this footage from home videos to show you guys.
Sorry, sorry. Okay, we'll just stop it there.
Ha!
Oops! Sorry.
WB.
Okay, here's our
It's the theme song.
Thank you, thank you. I know, it's my dad. Oops. Gotta catch 'em all, gotta catch 'em all.
The Pokemon theme song, I still think to this day, is a damn good song. One of the best child theme songs I've ever seen, if not for animation in general. It's creative, it's uplifting, it basically tells you about the world of Pokemon without beating you over the head with it like some of those theme songs did, where they tried to describe literally everything that happened and why you're getting into the show and that sort of thing. That just made you feel dumb. Even if you're a kid, it's like, I get it after the 60th time that I've seen this show. I don't need to be beat over the head with exactly what happens in this world and how I need to get into it. Pokemon just felt like an uplifting theme that had a great musicality to it, and it was something that was very unique, but at the same time it pushed you and it made you want to be the best like no one ever was.
Just stop your crying, it's a sign of the times. We gotta get away from here. We gotta get away from here.
Raise your hands if you remember Y2K. I was certainly there. I lived through the experience. My family had trash cans filled up with water because we were so worried. If you don't know what Y2K is, it's something where basically we thought computers weren't going to be able to handle the fact that it was crossing from 1999 to 2000. And we thought basically the economy is going to come to a potential crash if this happens. We were so worried, but then nothing happened. So I've selected Sign of the Times by Harry Styles for my pick from 2000. Obviously this track wasn't out then, but it's a representation. Stop your crying. It's a sign of the times. Obviously, we're rolling into this new era, this new millennium, and things are going to be very, very different in this century, and really not. Actually, nothing really changed. I remember it got to midnight and we were all like, okay, let's go to bed. I was an only child. My parents were very worried. I remember this. I would hear them talking and murmuring and that sort of thing. Like, what are we gonna do? Like, just in case. Like, they didn't think it was gonna happen, but I think some of their neighbors had convinced them that, hey, maybe this is gonna be a thing. My next door neighbor had like 20 trash cans that he had bought just to fill up with water. And then it was just so fun to watch him kind of pour those out days later. So, Sign of the Times, if that song had existed back then, I would have shown it to everyone and then laughed 2 days or the day after, really whenever they were like, oh, Y2K wasn't actually a thing.
Any place it goes, it's right. Flies far, goes near to the stars away.
My parents were very strict on video games. They didn't let me own any consoles or anything really. I had to go over to my friend Devin's house if I ever wanted to play N64, which I quite frequently did, and Game Boy and that sort of thing. Even the PS1, whenever that was a thing. And I would go over there and kind of get jealous because I was like, why can't I have these things? But at the same time, now looking back, I'm super happy that I wasn't always playing them because, you know, I actually had a real childhood experience where me and my friends went out and had adventures and found things to do. But the track that I'm mentioning today is by Steppenwolf and it's called Magic Carpet Ride. This is my 2001 pick because my first ever video game that I think I officially owned was Triple Play Baseball 2001. My aunt from California sent me this as a gift, and while I didn't have a computer, my next door neighbor did, and I would either go over there or else my grandpa's house to actually play on the computer and play my baseball game. And if anybody ever played Triple Play 2001, you know that a remix of Magic Carpet Ride was actually used as the intro music, and I would hear that every time. I would get so into it because back in the day, you had to watch that. You couldn't really skip over it because the game was loading. It would actually take so long to load each time. So I would just sit there, rock out, sing along, and obviously I think they used the song because it says baseball in it, but still, I really got into the song. It made me curious enough to like ask my parents about the music, and they knew who Steppenwolf were, so I learned a little bit more, and I ended up loving the song as a result of it.
Piece of my childhood that'll never be forgotten. It was just an old plywood boat with 75 Johnson with electric choke.
In 2002, I was 10 going on 11, and that summer, the album by Alan Jackson, Drive, took over me and my dad's life. And this is going to be such a tough thing for me whenever my dad does pass away someday, because this was like our album. This was our time together. And he was a school teacher, so he always had summers off, and my mom would be at work, so me and him would spend a lot of time together. And while things got rougher down the road, I think this is one of the like last times before like my teenage years where we were like really in sync and getting along before I got out of my country music phase and that sort of thing. But Drive, I can still look back to as a fantastic song. It's the title track from the album, but really that entire record. Alan Jackson's very talented, very traditional country, but the track Drive just reminds you of that wide-eyed innocence of doing things with your dad and doing things because you wanted to impress him or he wanted to show something off to you. And I could sing every single word still to this day. I love it. Even though I don't cover a ton of country whatsoever, this is a moment that I will always have a special place for in my heart.
369, damn, you sing it to me one more time. Get low, get low, get low, get low, get low, get low.
From that more emotional moment, we transfer over to the Kings of Crunk themselves, Little John and the Eastside Boys featuring the Yin Yang Twins on Get Low. Oh boy, my eyes were starting to be opened and I was ushered into a whole new world. That's right, Lil Jon and the Eastside Boys thanks to Need for Speed Underground. 2003 was the year that we finally got a PC in our household, a desktop computer, and I bought the game Need for Speed Underground. I still have it to this day. It's something that I still will occasionally pop in on my PS2 because obviously I originally had the PC version, which I still do have laying around somewhere. But the PS2 version is the one that I have now and will still play. Every time the game loads, you hear get low, get low, get low, to the window, to the wall. Everybody knows this song. I mean, come on.
Every roommate kept awake by every sigh and scream we make.
It says a lot about so many of the picks that I have on this list because they come from video games. Video games were my initial introduction to music, and while I didn't have the capabilities of really going and searching out more music at the time, we had very limited dial-up internet, and my parents very closely monitored it, and of course YouTube wasn't even a thing in 2004. So I couldn't really look up music, and I didn't really know what I was doing, but I knew the songs on the soundtrack for NASCAR Thunder 2004. Another gift from my aunt, who was very conservative and would have never guessed that some of the songs that were on there were actually on there, like Avenged Sevenfold. I think that Fuel was on there, a couple other really hard rock bands like Rancid, Fall Back Down, Iggy Pop, and Sum 41, Little Know It All. A great soundtrack. I loved it. That's how I discovered bands like Depswa as well. But obviously the song that I've selected today is 3 Days Grace, I Hate Everything About You. This song was in the track listing, and I just remember cruising around, just like over and over I would do like the free lap thing where you could just race on NASCAR and you could play music in the background, or I would just hang out in the title menu so I could hear this song over and over again. I couldn't get over that slow acoustic opening and then those thundering drums that just really roared in, and then Adam Gontier unleashing, "I hate everything about you," and I was just like, I'm starting to be an angsty teen. This is starting to relate to me.
I walk this empty street on the boulevard of broken dreams, where the city sleeps and I'm the only one and I walk alone.
I have the biggest smile on my face. I smile like a fool because 2005 is my year. 2005 is my favorite year of my life, I think, still to this day, just because it's the year that changed me. It's the year that made me me. And while I didn't entirely become me, I was still an awkward 13-year-old kid at that time. This is the year that I fell in love with music. My music. The music that I wanted to hear. I started calling the shots. I started making the choices. And this is the turning point. I said, goodbye country music, at least for now. Goodbye contemporary Christian and religious music. I'm moving on to my own thing. The song that I've selected for 2005 is of course one that you're familiar with. I'm sure you know my channel. You know it's my favorite song of all time still to this day. Boulevard of Broken Dreams. It's a song that shaped me. It's a song that truly saved me and got me through some of the darkest times of my life, where I felt like I was a reject, where I felt like I wasn't accepted. I went to a private Christian school and had conservative parents who were telling me that this music was evil and was bad. And while songs like this were really just meant to uplift and to show you that, hey, you're not the only one. Just because you're walking alone and your shadow's the only one walking beside you, that's okay. You know, sometimes you might wish that you're somewhere else, but it's going to be okay. You're going to get through this. And I love the musicality of it. I would air jam to that big guitar solo at the outro. I remember recording this and ripping it right off of the radio and just playing it on cassette over and over and over again until I finally ripped the American Idiot CD from a friend.
And every second I waste is more than I can take. I become so numb, I can't feel you there.
I've been working on this video for a little while now, and this was always a song that I had in mind for 2006, but it's one that is especially haunting now, especially with the passing and suicide of Chester Bennington, the lead singer and vocalist of Linkin Park. It's something that's very odd for me to talk about now because Chester's voice and his lyrics just guided me through such a struggle. As I was talking about on Boulevard, it was a song that lifted me up. This was another song right here, NUMB, that I would just sing at the top of my lungs in the shower. If my parents left for a little while, I just felt really confused because I didn't know what was going on. I had crushes on girls that I knew would never like me back. I had other things that were going on in my life. I felt like none of my friends really actually liked me. I felt like they didn't care about my taste in music and never wanted to hang out and listen to songs with me and that sort of thing. So other than the friends that I had in my neighborhood, I felt very isolated, and we ended up moving in 2005 away from that neighborhood. So 2006 was especially a bitter time for me because I was mad at my parents. I didn't understand that we couldn't financially stay there at the time, so I was just mad at them because we were moving and leaving, but it wasn't something where I could really just voice my opinion on that. It was automatically shut down. I just felt like I didn't have a voice, and I've become so numb was a phrase that really stuck and landed with me. And I have to say, rest in peace, Chester Bennington. Your music meant more than you will ever know to me and so many other people. Things finally started looking up, and I started coming into my own in 2007, and that's why I've selected a very upbeat tune, Secret Crowns by Angels and Airwaves. This is just the happiest of songs to me. Just like saying in the chorus, Tom DeLonge sings, "Let your words spread hope like fire." It's something where I would just scream that out. I finally started finding friends that liked these songs and liked the similar stuff that I liked, and I found out about Angels and Airwaves on Fuse after learning that obviously Blink-182 were broken up or else on hiatus or whatever it was at the time. But I was so excited. I was like, Tom DeLonge has new music, and I obviously got into We Don't Need to Whisper, and then Empire, and this was my profile song. If you saw me talking about roasting my MySpace songs over on Beyond ARTV, then you know what I'm talking about. I love this song, and this is the video that I was alluding to whenever I mentioned it. Secret Crowds is a humongous song. It's tremendous, and it's thundering, and it's something that is an anthem for people, and it's where I started to feel comfortable in my own skin, the year of 2007.
Cigarette rest between her lips, but I'm staring at her tits. It's the wrong way. Strong if I can, but I am only a man, so I take her to the can. It's the wrong way.
2008 was another monumental year for me because I started to have more friends than I ever would have expected, and drumroll please, I had my very first girlfriend, my first real one at least. I mean, the others that lasted like 2 or 3 days, you know that middle school shit doesn't count. Now this was a band that I had not previously heard of, but my girlfriend at the time got me into some pretty cool ones, and one that I still love to this day. Sublime's track Wrong Way is what I have picked for 2008. This was a song that I heard because we would like pass like songs back and forth in the MySpace messages, and she was like one day, oh, check out my new profile song, and I was like, whoa, this sounds pretty good. This is like kind of funky. I have never really heard something like this before. And I remember discovering other bands like Mayday Parade, Fastball. It was like a mix of like 90s and now, and like I got into more of like Nirvana's music because of her. And while obviously this is a connection that was cut long ago, the music sticks with you and it reminds you of those times. And I just remember the summer memories of driving around with just friends in general, going out, doing things, and this song was in the background of it all, playing on my iPod more often than not. Obviously, with more friends comes more confidence, and I really started to feel like a big shot walking around those halls. Not because I was 6'6" and taller than most people, but because, once again, I felt more comfortable and I had more friends, and it didn't really matter. It was a very small school, everybody knew each other, and this was my senior year whenever this track came out. It was the fall of that year, and junior year had definitely been a big year for me. I had really, like I said, kind of grown into myself and come out of my shell more, but 2009, senior year especially, is where I really just stopped caring. I wasn't very studious, and I had always kind of been a jokester, but me and my buddy Cameron were really known as the ultimate master prankers that year in particular. I started pulling pranks on people, I started goofing around, and I Don't Care by Fall Out Boy is the perfect monumental moment that just describes and sums up that year for me. It was where I was going into graduation and that sort of thing. I just, even though I didn't try very hard, I was still getting decent grades. I felt kind of like the big shot, like I mentioned already, and this song would play and I would just drive around in my Mustang and I would just be like, I'm the shit. Nothing is gonna bring me down. And while years later, I look back at that and kind of like, I'm just like, it's kind of cringeworthy. But at the same time, you're young, you're wild, you're free, and I think it's okay to exude that sometimes.
Every
2010 was the year of my high school graduation and my first year of college, and I've picked Sweetness by Jimmy Eat World. Obviously, this came out way before 2010. It came out in 2001 on Bleed American, but this song was so kind of scary to me in a way because I would listen to the lyrics, and it's about a bitter breakup, but it also feels like the separation for me between like going to like a church-based school and then moving into like the real world. And this is something where I felt so conflicted, and I felt bad for like starting to like swear and that sort of thing. And while I wasn't drinking or anything at the time, I was 18, I was moving into this new world, and I think that this song kind of represents exactly the mental warfare I was experiencing. Where are my dubstep fans out? I know you're out there somewhere. I know that there are others that look back fondly on this time period. I honestly miss that upbeat feel because, like I've mentioned several times recently, so much pop now is just drab and just dry and boring, and I'm like, what's going on here? I miss the exciting bass drops and the unexpected glitches and the pitch shifting and all of that stuff. And while I haven't selected a Skrillex track, and while Skrillex pretty much broke dubstep into the mainstream, I have selected a track that I just really remember very fondly, and it's by SKEPTIKS. It's called Cobwebs, and it's a track that probably got me in trouble, but at the same time, I'm okay with it. I never actually got a speeding ticket, and kids, Do not do this, but I remember cruising down the highway, just flying. I would go with the bass of this song, and that big bass drop, I would floor it on the highway at night. I would cruise around, speed around town in this, and just blasting this song. It's a song that would give me chills every single time, and I would turn the volume down low as it kind of crept up on you, and then slam on the gas, crank the volume as the bass dropped.
Shout this out so everybody knows. Say a party, get off the dance floor. You want to get down, here comes the gang war. You do it all right, I got the answer.
In the previous year of 2011, at age 19, I finally moved out of my parents' house. It had been a long time coming. We did not get along at all at that time, and unfortunately at the time, my mom was dealing with breast cancer. She was battling that, and while she has been free of that for 5 years now at the time of recording this video, it was something that was very scary to me, and I didn't really handle it and process it in the best way, and I think as a result, I definitely would have gone back and changed things and maybe been a lot nicer to my parents during that time period because they were going through so much financially and obviously physically as well. This was something that was draining all of us, but I moved out in 2012. That was the year that I had a roommate from college that I had met, and we started partying and drinking a lot. So Party Poison by My Chemical Romance is the perfect soundtrack to what I experienced that year. I had never drank really before 2011, and while I only did it a few times that year, 2012 was the year where we were really just known for throwing parties basically every weekend, sometimes multiple per weekend. And I wasn't used to that, but I kind of liked it. And part of me misses that because the chaos and the unpredictability, but at the same time, I don't miss just waking up feeling not hungover because I've never really experienced that many hangovers, maybe only 1 or 2 ever. I just don't miss the feeling of just being like the entire day after. But this song, Party Poison, was something that me and my roommate loved. We were both huge MCR fans. We loved Danger Days to death. I still do to this day. And we would just crank on songs like this and just dance our asses off with everybody out in the middle of the living room. I'm sure our neighbors hated us, but it was totally worth it.
I go on with you. Can it be the way it was when we met? Did you forget all about those golden nights?
2013 was the year when I started to experience nostalgia for older times because friends started to move away. My best buddy Craig at the time just had left and gone off to college. He wasn't really coming back that often anymore, and other people were starting to move. Me and my roommate just didn't get along, and he ended up moving out. I was living by myself, and The Way It Was by The Killers is the song that I've selected. That came out on their 2012 record Battle Born, and this song in particular to me just felt really special because it did make me sentimental for older times with friends and memories. And while this is seemingly a relationship-driven song, it's something where I took hold of more for friendship. That's where I found the meaning in the song.
A time to build up, a time to break down, a time to dance, a time to mourn, a time to cast away stones.
Turn, Turn, Turn by the BYRDS is my pick for 2014, a song that was very much definitive of that time period because I've always loved this song from a very young age. I'm a huge Forrest Gump fan, and this song by the BYRDS was used in the soundtrack, and that was one of the movies that my parents would let me watch, even though it was a little bit more edgy, a little bit more definitely PG-13 that you probably shouldn't be watching, but your parents love it so much that they're gonna watch it anyways with you because even though they're conservative, you know, it's Forrest Gump, it's Tom Hanks doing the best thing ever and is one of his best acting roles ever. So who doesn't love that movie? But sidetrack and rabbit hole rant aside, I do love this song, and it was very much meaningful to me at the time because this is the year that I just up and moved all the way to the coast, about 3.5 hours away from where I had lived my entire life. This was scary because I only knew like 1 or 2 people that lived down there, and this was one of the most isolated times of my life. And while this song doesn't define that, it's just describing there is a season, turn, turn, turn. Life is throwing you all of these curveballs and changes, and while maybe you don't know what's going on, I did find comfort in moments like this.
So different, I must admit. I caught a glimpse, I'm going after it. They say people never change, but that's bullshit.
2015 was a year of cynicism for me in a way. It was a year where I felt like I just started seeing the critical part of my mind even more, and that's something that still to this day that I wish that I could just turn off sometimes. I hate that I look for flaws in pretty much everything because that's what I do. I look for criticisms of things, whether it be music or movies, things that I don't even review. I just feel like I see through things, like it's a ghost standing in front of me and I can walk right through it and just basically just dissolve whatever people think they've built up. And I'm just like, oh, that's fake, or oh, I don't believe that, or oh, that marketing scheme, you know, that's not real. That person doesn't seem genuine. I hate in a way that I can see that, but at the same time, I feel like so many people don't see that. So I selected for 2015, Yes, I'm Changing by TAME IMPALA. This is a beautiful song, of course. I love the synthesizers on it, Kevin Parker and his voice and his lyrics here. Like, they say people never change, but that's bullshit. I just felt like I was just sick of it all. And after living at the beach and at the coast for 13 months, I moved back home because I was homesick. I was really just depressed, down and out, and I just didn't know what I was doing. I poured pretty much everything I had into my channel at that time because I felt so lonely. And even the people that I knew down at the coast, I didn't even really get to hang out with them that much. It was something where I just felt isolated. So I moved back home, and this album came out in the summer wherever I moved back. It came out in July of 2015. And Yes, I'm Changing is such a monumental track for me. I love the entire album, Currents, but this one in particular, I just looked at people and I was like, yes, I'm changing as a person. I feel like I'm growing and I'm seeing things. And I feel like these friends of mine, they're almost like digressing. They're moving backwards and they say people never change, but that's bullshit. Felt so true because I would look at people that I used to be good friends with and I was like, I don't even know you anymore.
Please take me back to your bed. I love you so much that it hurts my head. I don't mind you under my skin. I'll let the bad parts in, the bad parts in.
I don't want this to sound depressing because you just heard the preview of the song there and you saw what I picked and it's brand new as DEGAUSSER and you're like, wow, did he have another depressing year? No, the opposite of that. 2016 was hands down one of the best years of my entire life. I met the love of my life, who you guys know as Infinity on Hannah, during that year. And while we had pretty much, I guess, known of each other's existence before that, this is the first time where we had really talked, and this happened very early on in the year, in January. At the end of 2015, I bought my first ever house, which I still live in to this day, and I felt proud of myself for doing that at a young age. I think I bought it whenever I was like 23, about to turn 24. So I was a homeowner and I was getting settled in 2016. And then very early on, I actually found a girl that I connected with. And even though it was long distance, it was something that we eventually made work. And I'm very proud of us for that. DEGAUSSER was pretty much our song. And lines like, I love you so much that it hurts my head, were just monumental to us. It made us feel closer to each other. And I remember listening to this song like on the way to having to drive her back to the airport, to going back to Pennsylvania where she's from, and just being so sad and gutted because this is a very emo tinged song, but at the same time we felt so strongly about each other very early on. It's just always going to hold a very special place to me.
Gonna make you wonder why you even try. Hard times, gonna take you down and laugh when you cry. These words, and I still don't know how I even survived.
2017, gonna make you wonder why you even try. I have so many reasons that I could list for just hard times defining my year this year, but there's been a lot of financial setbacks, whether it be the adpocalypse, a lot of things around my place breaking, and just me having to pay extra money. And I know that's kind of personal and that sort of thing, but it's been a tough year. I've had trouble with health issues, I've had other just financial problems, unexpected bills coming out of nowhere. Donald Trump took office this year. It's been kind of a rough year, but it's something where you kind of have to stay the course, because even whenever you feel so demotivated, whether it be me making videos or me just being like, oh, when is this all gonna end? When is a cloud gonna go away? It's like raining on me all the time right now. I feel like this video in and of itself is helping cheer me up because I'm remembering all these other great times that I've had in my life. And I just sometimes have to turn off that switch of negativity that says, oh, you have to criticize this, or you have to listen to this, you have to do this. And I know this is a much more personal video than you're probably used to, but I do hope that you understand why I've selected a lot of the songs and said a lot of things that I've said today. This is pretty much my draw my life, I guess, and it's something that I feel like is much more appropriate for me as a music influencer and critic and that sort of thing, because songs define my life. I feel like music defines my life, not just drawings and me telling you things, because I can tell you things more easily because I can think back to songs and albums that I was loving at the time. And 2017's pick, Hard Times by Paramore, is an amazing song, one that I love because it's very upbeat, but if you listen to the lyrical content, you could see Haley's struggle, almost losing her mind over that track, and I feel like I've almost lost my mind a few times in 2017. Anyways, cheers to the future, and future John, if you're watching this video, I hope things are going well, buddy. Keep pushing on. Look back to this video and know that you made it this far. You gotta keep going. You gotta keep pushing. better things are just around the corner. Don't forget to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because friends don't let friends go unsubscribed. You can go directly to my Patreon page by tapping that annotation over in the corner of the screen, another special video right here, or another recent review that I did right over here. Social media can all be found in the description, and other than that, I'll see you very soon for more content right here on ARTV.